Good morning, good morning, good morning, beautiful people. Good afternoon, good evening. No matter what time it is, just know this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. As always, God is good, and He is good all the time. We got to have the conversation. Y'all know I'm a stickler for the criminal justice. By the grace of God, He blessed me with 3 degrees all in criminal justice. And so this is not only, you know what I'm saying, my level of expertise, but it's also a passion, right? I love everything and anything criminal justice related, especially when it comes to the little people. I use my knowledge for the greater good. What else do you use it for? To get rich? Good luck with that. But anyways, we got to get into it, man. I don't know if y'all heard about it, but here in the state of New York, we got a pretty popular case going around, and it's a man by the name of Timothy Williams, who is currently alleged to have murdered Wendy Jerome in 1984, over 30 years ago. Over 30 years ago. It's damn near 40, okay? And this case is gaining so much publicity, one, because of the details around this young lady's murder, right? She was a 14-year-old girl who was found murdered near a school, 33 school to be exact, in the city of Rochester. She was found to have her throat slashed. She was presumed to have been raped, you know what I'm saying? And she was left for dead, okay? Now, this has been a cold case for, like I said, damn near 40 years. And in 2020, our municipality is in the state of New York, Sandra Dorley, to be exact, decided to charge motherfucker Timothy Williams based on what they're calling familial DNA. So what they're doing is utilizing DNA that has been placed into the systems by other people, family members, right? And this ain't just people that have been incarcerated and their DNA has been, sucked into the system, the criminal justice system. You got them utilizing the DNA of people who just so happen to be like, you know what, I want to go on Ancestry or 23andMe, and get my DNA work done and see what I'm made of, what I'm made up of, and who my kinfolk are. Yes, they're utilizing third parties to acquire our DNA. Now, there's all types of issues with that. I mean, one, familial DNA brings so many issues. There's flaws with that because, one, the main question that jumps out into my brain is, how the freak do you single it down to your suspect? Like, how do you look at the DNA of family members and then all of a sudden you done honed in and be like, yep, this is the person that did it, after we looked at a bunch of people who supposedly had nothing to do with it? It's dangerous because, one, you're bringing in people into a criminal matter that has absolutely nothing to do with the situation. And in fact, they would be considered innocent in this regard. You're bringing in innocent bystanders into the criminal justice system, the same criminal justice system that disproportionately funnels black people into the system. Disproportionately funnels people of color, disproportionately funnels poor people, disproportionately funnels people with mental illness. You see where we're going? They're depending on the same institution. And what I think is interesting, aside from the flaws that pertains to that. But like I said, how do you pinpoint exactly who you looking for? But before I get into that, let me give you the full details of this case, man, because the reason why I thought to bring this up is because it popped up on Twitter. One of our, our local journalists, a lady of the name Jackie Napier, she brought it to my attention, which you can see here. And this is what I really want to hone in right here. So I want this to be seen, right? So like we said, 40 years went by. 40 years went by. And in 2020, they just established that this gentleman right here, Timothy Williams, a former resident of Rochester, New York, a black man who just so happened to live in the area, they, in 2020, deemed him as their perpetrator utilizing familial DNA. Familial DNA. Now, we're going to set aside the flaws, you know what I'm saying, and the issues that comes with using familial DNA, but the fact that 40 years later, they come for this black man. Now, historically, black people have been accused of rape, murder, everything in the above of white people just for existing in the area, right? If you watch my previous videos, you see that I'm in the process of reading a book called Blood at the Root. And throughout this book, it takes us through numerous examples of individuals, black individuals, who were accused of harming, raping, murdering, assaulting, all types of things of white people just because, one, they just so happen to be in the area, two, because there's outsiders, and many of y'all probably haven't heard of the term, but there's this thing called white anxiety, which white people fears the outsider, right? We've seen it time and time again historically where black people got hemmed up for stuff that they didn't do just for existing in that area, right? We even see it with the criminal labels that they place onto different communities, right? Where you can live in an area. Once that area is deemed a crime spot, a hot spot for crime, baby, you lose all your rights. You lose all your rights because now the police can stop you and frisk you. They can ask you questions just because they see you in an area that has been deemed high crime, right? And so now the door has been open for harassment and everything under the sun just because you just so happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It happens numerous of times. Majority of the people sitting up in our jails and prisons have fell victim to these policing tactics, right? And we see it again where this black man, this race shouldn't even be brought up as a factor. However, you can't discuss anything, especially in the United States, without looking at what they consider extra legal factors. Your race, your gender, your socioeconomic background. You see what I'm saying? This man was made their perpetrator through familial DNA. Now I wonder, I'm like, how the freak did they get here? They sought family DNA. They supposedly had DNA sample, which they said was semen, that was taken from the victim through the autopsy. And what they did was run this supposedly semen, and they went to search for close relatives of the individual. They came across the close relatives and they honed down on him. How? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. But they honed in on him and they said, you know what, we're going to accuse him. At the time, he was about 20 years old. Currently, this man is about 60, okay? But They honed in on him. And for the past 3 years, they, and when I say they, as in the government, they've been trying to pin him for the murder, the rape of this young girl. Now, recently, as you see from the title, a mistrial had taken place. A mistrial occurred, and this is why I brought up this Jackie lady, because she's even, showed it, right? Where there's a mistrial that they, the government is saying has taken place, but they're blaming the jury. They're blaming it on incompetent jury. And so you'll see it over and over and over with her reporting on whether it's Judge Moran or Thomas Moran, or they're reporting on Sandra Dorley. You see it. Judge Moran is visibly upset. He tells jurors, "You did exactly what I told you not to do. You don't pay attention to what the hell I tell you." And then it tells us how her family is crying in the courtroom. Then Moran adds, nobody pays attention to rules anymore. And Judge Moran, Thomas Moran, says this was a case of juror misconduct. Now, we have not been notified what led to this juror's misconduct, what the juror's misconduct is. We don't know nothing. All we know is that they're blaming it on juror misconduct. And when I say they, Thomas Moran and Sandra Dorley. Then he goes and says, prior to dismissing the jurors, Thomas Moran told them, if you didn't go home on Friday with your heart broken, there is something wrong with you. Now, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? Just because somebody is relaying this heartfelt motherfreaking statement doesn't mean that the person that you have accused of the crime did it. But this is the issue with the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system do not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you did what they accuse you of. What they do is try to convince a jury. They try to convince a jury through persuasion, figurative language, and all this other stuff. They try to appeal to your emotions. Don't want you to think about logic. They don't want you to see what is presented before you or what is lacking before you. They just want you to hear the narratives that they are pushing and you to choose a narrative. You either choose to support the narrative of the defense attorney or you choose to support the narrative of the prosecutor as a jury. That's all they want you to do. It's not proved beyond a reasonable doubt. It's listen to my narrative and be convinced. And I think it's interesting because it's like you have Sandra Dorley, you have Thomas Moran saying, if you didn't go home with your heart broken, if they were to maintain the same jury, which they more than likely aren't because they have a mistrial, but if they were, him talking like that would coerce the jury into providing a guilty verdict. What happened to the right to due process? And then blaming the jury. Mind you, we don't know what the jury has, where this misconduct is at. I mean, you can see it here. I'll even show you. Neither prosecution nor defense will reveal the specific issue that caused the mistrial for Timothy Williams. Dorley says she believes we are seeing more and more jury issues as the years go on. She also adds there have been a few mistrials in my office over the last couple of months. I also had a mistrial when I had my case October of last year. But the mistrial ain't had squat to do with no jury. The mistrial had to do with the fact of the structure and the way, the procedures that the courts carried it out, the prosecutor, the defense, and the judge. People overlook the fact that majority cases that actually goes to trial, most of them result in acquittals, dismissals, mistrials. whether it's due to prosecutorial misconduct, judge, and their misconduct. It could even be your own defense attorney misconduct. In my regard, that's what happened with me, where I was facing 2 menacing with a deadly weapons charge, and then I was facing charges of obstructing government administration because the police could not legally charge me with, avoiding arrest, or say they couldn't arrest me with trying to evade an arrest, because I'm heard and seen on the body worn camera footage asking the police, am I under arrest? And they said no. So I told them at this point, I am resisting assault, not arrest. So they charged me with obstructing government administration. And at my trial, the day of my trial, my public defender, whom I shared her with 99 other people, because you got to remember, these public defenders, they oversee at least 100 court cases by themselves with no help. You know what I'm saying? And they get paid little to nothing. But these people, this lady, she kept saying, like, I don't think we're going to have a trial because I don't think your accusers, which is the people that I had this altercation with, they accused me of pointing a weapon in their face after we got into an altercation. And she said, I don't think that they're going to show up because the way that the law works is that if you come in as a testimonial witness, you open the doors for cross-examination. You open the door for them to pull your business out there. So in order for them to stand as witnesses to testify against me, that opens the door for my public, defender, my defense, to come for them and pull all their skeletons out. And this chick, Brittany Clark, she was so adamant that they weren't going to show up. She didn't even prepare for the case whatsoever. She said, I don't think they're going to show up because they have an extensive record and they know that if they come, because I'm pretty sure the prosecutor done told them that if they stand, to testify against you, that I can pull out all of their business. And she said, because of their extensive criminal record, the jury will more than likely take your side because you have no criminal record versus them with an extensive criminal record. So she was adamant these people weren't going to show up. What did they do? They showed up at my trial. She didn't have no defense prepared. And so on the spot, I fired her. I requested to speak to the judge and I told him I want to fire her because she did not prepare. Told him everything that I just told y'all. He pulled her to the back. I don't know what the freak he said to her, but by the time he was done, she came back up. She was crying. She was no longer my attorney. They said that this was a mistrial and that we were going to start over from scratch, a whole nother trial that they were scheduling out. But they were saying that because that day they were looking to come for me for the menacing with a deadly weapon charge. And in the opening statement, the prosecutor was so dependent on this menacing with a deadly weapon charge. This is what she was going to prove to put me away because the obstructing government administration, it wasn't really going to stick. Okay. Because they really wanted to charge me with resisting arrest, but they can't because of you see what I'm saying? The evidence was in my favor. But the way that these courts are set up is that once we do something, baby, there ain't no going back. Once we make a ruling, they ain't going back. Once you in here, we don't undo what we already started. So instead of them just dismissing it, even though they had no case to begin with, they dragged this out for 17 months, y'all. 17 months. But they said that they had to throw out the evidence, whatever evidence they claimed to have had that shows me menacing with a deadly weapon. And then they had to get rid of the charges because of what? The mistrial. Their opening statement, as in the prosecutorial opening statement, was fully dependent on this weapon evidence and the weapon charges. But because they threw everything out pertaining to the weapon and the menacing with a deadly weapon, they no longer had a case. The only thing they had was obstructing government administration. I come to my next court appearance, they don't even hold a trial for the obstructing government administration. Why? Because they have no case. What are you going to do? Sit here and say she obstructed government administration and show them a video of me asking the police, am I under arrest? And they said no. Come on. It's mind-blowing to me that these people, and when I say these people, I'm talking about the motherfucking judge, Sandra Dorley. These people, they're so desperate to throw this man away. And this is the issue when it comes to the criminal justice system, right? Is that these people they're so ready to just get a conviction. This is a cold case. You know, we had this family, you know, they've been victims to this matter for so long, and blah, blah. We need to close it. We need to close. And that's all they care about is closing the case, trying to increase the clearance rate, but they don't even care that they could potentially be locking away the wrong person. Crime statistics straight up says you are more than likely to be assaulted, to be murdered, raped, any type of violence. It's more likely to be brought on upon you by someone you know. The amount of cases that result in a victim being victimized, especially when it comes to violence, rape, assault, molestation, murder. When it comes to stuff like this, you are least likely to experience this by a stranger. Over 90% of these situations occur between parties who know each other, whether you're family or you call yourself friends. You know each other to some degree. Now, I'm not saying that he may not be, you know, or he's not the person, he may not be the tiny percentage that contributed, but at the same time I am. Because he just may not be. Okay? He could very much be that tiny percentage of motherfucking strangers that inflict harm, you know, violence upon strangers. And then he very well may not even be the person at all. And now you're focusing on this man. And the real murderer is out here living their best life while you convict another, you know, innocent person. And then what was even more crazy about this matter, like I said, aside from them being so thirsty to throw him away, they so thirsty to throw him away, and he's a black man. Even with the disproportionate arrest rates, the disproportionate incarceration of black people in the jails and the prisons, I mean, Tom Moran said a case of juror misconduct was to blame. Why haven't they specified what this misconduct is? You want to tell us that it's due to misconduct. You want us to, you know, have all these outcries. You want to evoke a reaction, you know, but you won't even give us the reason. It doesn't even make any sense. Then you try to put a man away using familial DNA, even though that there's out of 50 states, less than 15 of them are actually utilizing this means of acquiring information to gain a lead. And the crazy part about it, this is only to be utilized to get a lead. Once they get the family and they start to narrow it down, they're supposed to go and test the DNA of the individual to see if it matches. But we still don't even know what's the difference between his DNA and the DNA you utilize to zoom in on him. Because who is there to say whoever DNA you used didn't do this? It's been 40 years. We've heard numerous times of examples where evidence was getting butchered. Evidence was getting messed up. 40 years is a long time, and especially coming from the 80s. We went from a period where technology was like almost non-existent when it comes to the criminal justice system to now all of a sudden in 2020, they're using familial DNA to put away this man, to say, hey, we have a lead. This is our perpetrator. We're going after him. Who is there to even say that the evidence pertaining to this case was even handled the way that it was supposed to ensure no contamination? For all we know, it's been contaminated. We don't know anything. We don't even know what was the misconduct supposedly handled by these motherfucking jury. Make it make sense, y'all. But I'm supposed to believe what these people say. I mean, it sucks for this young lady, but come on. You got a white girl. You got a white girl accused of being murdered by a black man. Then mistrial takes place. You blame juror misconduct, but then we're not made aware of what this misconduct was, even though these court cases are open to the public. And then what I don't like is how Thomas Moran wants to blame these people. You did exactly what I told you not to. He's ready to scold the jury. Then you sitting here talking about if you're not sad about what you heard on Friday, then something must be wrong with you. This is coming out the mouth of the same man who, as I stood before him, because when I had my own criminal matter going on, I was facing, like I said, 2 menacing with a deadly weapon charges, the obstructing government administration charges. That was on the criminal side. Then I had Thomas Moran, who I was seeing as the presiding judge over my pistol permit hearing, because I, at the time, just like I am now, am licensed to carry concealed in the state of New York. When I was arrested and those charges was thrown against me, these people came for all my stuff. They sent me documentation from the Monroe County Courthouse stating that every firearm I owned had to be turned in because it was basically being suspended. I was no longer capable of holding any of my firearms, and they also took my pistol carry conceal permit. And here it is, I'm standing before Thomas Moran for my pistol permit hearing, which he stated in the beginning that he wasn't even going to deal with it until he figured out what happened with my criminal stuff, which I think is a little crazy, because I have the right to bear arms, except when they create laws like, or they pass legislation like the New York State SAFE Act, which states that the government is legally allowed to violate your constitutional right and search and seize your firearms, even though I have not been convicted of no crime. I don't have any blemishes that says, hey, this person is not capable of carrying. All I had was charges against me. It was people accusing me of doing something, and before they even did anything to prove whether or not it was legit, the system went with it and ran with it. And now I got this dude, Thomas Moran, sitting here and telling me that he believes that I did what I was accused of, which was menacing with a deadly weapon and obstructing government administration, because I stood before him asking him why he took my stuff from me when I have the right to bear arms. And I vocally stated that I feel that the New York SAFE Act violates my constitutional rights, which ain't nothing. It's not absurd. This is rhetoric that has been said in numerous spaces, especially amongst organizations that are pro-Second Amendment. I think it's even crazy that by the time I was done with that court appearance, when I went to leave and I was being walked out by one of the police officers, he even said it, and it was a white dude. He even said, I agree with you. It does violate our constitutional rights. And I even said to him, but here I am, standing before this man, while you sit here and you're not. Make it make sense. This dude is supposed to be impartial. He's supposed to be unbiased. Where is the impartiality making comments like this? Where's the impartiality? Where's the impartiality? Make it make sense to me, man. Then what I think is even more interesting is that Sandra Dorley, this lady is just as weird as Thomas Moran, right? She's just as adamant on locking this man away. And let me show you why they're so desperate to lock this man away. It says a former medical examiner who is now living in South Africa was flown in for this trial. Do you know how much money it takes to fly somebody in for a court case? As were witnesses from Melbourne. A former medical examiner, so they flying him in as an expert witness. as well as other witnesses from Melbourne, Florida, and lab technicians that drove from Albany. Dorley says the district attorney's office has spent a lot of money on this case so far, but you really can't compare that to what we're seeking here. There was a 14-year-old girl who was brutally murdered on Thanksgiving Day 39 years ago. Way to throw in the Thanksgiving Day. I mean, if this ain't trying to appeal to your emotions, baby, I don't know what it is. In addition to the fact that I think it's so interesting that these big cases, because I even attended another case like this, and I'm pretty sure the defendant name is also Williams. But I attended another case like similar to this, where it was a big case. There was this guy who had a schizophrenic episode, right? And he was alleged to had assaulted a police officer to the point, I think the police officer is supposedly blind or something like that. But what I do remember is the fact that this man, they were saying like the worst had happened, right? They wanted to hem him up and everything. But guess where when his case took place and all that wonderful jazz? Guess where it took place? Around the same time as now. Around Thanksgiving and Christmas. I think it's so interesting that these motherfucking cases are strategically set to take place around holidays. I read this article where it says that for the next 2 weeks, today is December 6th, 2 weeks, that leads us right before Christmas. For the next 2 weeks, this case will be ongoing, this trial will be ongoing. How do you expect jurors to make adequate and efficient motherfucking decision making regarding someone's life, liberty, and freedom when you're dangling this case to happen around the holidays? Now, I don't know if y'all ever sat any of these cases, y'all. I don't know if y'all ever sat any of these cases. But when you sit in these cases, especially as a jury, it don't matter if you're the jury, you the judge, if you the motherfucking person that just sitting in the audience, just observing. It is never uncommon to hear words like, the holiday is coming up. I don't think y'all gonna want to sit here during Christmas, trying to make a decision. They strategically set these cases to take place, just like they did Mr. Williams, around Christmas. So that way, 9 times out of 10, these people are more likely to rule in favor of convicting the defendant without actually really taking heed to all the information that they're being presented or the lack thereof. Because ideally, who wants to spend their holiday motherfucking standing jury? The average person does not. It's a tactic by the same government that sit here. You got Thomas Moran playing on your emotions. If your feelings ain't hurt, if you ain't saddened by the things that you heard. You got Sandra Doyle. We spent a lot of money on this case so far, but you can't compare that to the fact that a 14-year-old girl was brutally murdered on Thanksgiving Day 39 years ago. I would be desperate to convict this man too if I just wasted state and tax dollars to fly out people for this trial that we just got a mistrial for. Now she want to scold the jury. And I think it's crazy because the jury has always been in the same predicament. You want to sit here and talk about the jury ain't follow your instructions, baby. I done sat throughout 6+ years of college learning everything there is to learn about the criminal justice system, especially when it comes to these courts. And one thing I can tell you, when it comes to these briefings, the average juror don't comprehend what the freak they're being told, okay? Because one, when these briefings are taking place, they're not presented in layman's term. The judge on average is not really going through the same time that it took to teach me about constitutional law, the criminal system and all this stuff. He's not taking that time out. They're expecting you to know everything there is to know about the criminal justice system and to make a logical decision, even if you don't know everything there is to know about the criminal justice system. We expect you to learn everything there is we need you to know in this tiny amount of time. Because mind you, you're with us less than 2 weeks. And most of the time, I ain't talking to you. You are listening to the defense and the prosecutor talk. You just sitting there. I mean, how many times most people have it, the CSI effect, where people see it on TV. People's like, oh, let's just give this verdict. Let's just give this verdict because this is taking too long, or this is if we cause a mistrial, people are going to be upset with us. So much stress be placed onto the juror, and they're your average people. That's exactly why it's set up like that. They're your average people. You have the best likelihood of receiving some type of efficient, you know what I'm saying, handling of your case when you got people who ain't tainted, right? They're not tainted by all of this motherfucking legal jargon. They're not tainted by the needs and the desires of their local municipality, right? They're not getting paid for this. They're just people that you literally pull off the street and say, hey, we need you to oversee your fellow peer criminal case or trial, what have you. So to drag these people for something that ain't they fault, like the whole point of utilizing people that ain't got squat to do with the legal system is to ensure that there is a fair chance. Because why? We all have the right to due process. We all have the right to a fair trial, which includes a juror, okay, that is not well versed in the criminal justice system. I mean, in fact, people who are well versed in the criminal justice system ideally gets eliminated as a potential juror because of the fact that you got some expertise here. You got some knowledge here. You know a little something that may not benefit the defendant. So we got to get you up out of here. We got to use basically a clean slate. We need a person with a brain that is like a clean slate, and we need to provide you information and have you make a decision based on the information you've been presented without being tainted by previous experiences and or education. It's interesting. Like I said, I'll be thirsty too to throw this man away if I've had this case sitting over my head for 40 years. As the time goes on, it's looking a lot more bleak on finding the actual perpetrator, you know, on top of the fact that God knows how much money they done spent to acquire that DNA, that familial DNA, on top of the money that they spent to fly out motherfreaking this medical examiner from South Africa. And the thing that I think is even more crazy is, like, I took a psychology and law class, and it has been found that the memory of humans are flawed, so flawed that many advocates that are knowledgeable within psychology of law will tell you witness statements should not be utilized to put people away because the memory is so flawed. And we talking about 40 years. 40 years. How can this man expect a fair, efficient, and adequate trial with the amount of time that went by, the chances and risks of the evidence being tainted? Because these people's storage ain't what you think, baby. Let me tell you, it's a blessing if it's in a room in a filing cabinet, okay? And we're talking about DNA that's 40 years old. So 9 times out of 10, these records were being pulled out of filing cabinets. They're just a sheet of paper, some plastic bags with stuff in it. Okay? We talking about Ziploc bags. The same Ziploc bag that I could put some meat into, and if that meat sit in that Ziploc bag for enough time, the blood starts seeping through the motherfucking Ziploc bag. Still be wondering to this day how the freak blood gets through this bag. Where are there tiny holes in this? I can't. It's hard to not even cross contaminate food in my house, and you expect me to believe that you aren't cross contaminating evidence that has been placed into your evidence facility for over 40 years? They ain't, man. Niggas crazy. Neither prosecution nor defense will reveal the specific issue that caused the mistrial for Timothy Williams. One thing I can say though, I hope and pray that he gets exactly what I had. That mistrial, so they dropped those charges that's attached. And if I'm not mistaken, because they already heard the statements and everything, that's why they don't want to go into detail. But they already heard the statements, and I'm pretty sure that prosecutorial statement was just like mine, where they were so dependent on those charges, the bigger ones, not the obstructing government administration. For me, they were so adamant on maintaining that menacing with a deadly weapon. This one, I'm more than confident that motherfreaking, it's making me want to sit in on the case. I might actually show up tomorrow and Friday. But this motherfreaking prosecutor, I could bet every dollar in my account that their entire opening statement was dependent on the very thing that led to the mistrial, which if I am not wrong, that means that those charges associated with this mistrial has got to go. So the rape and the murder charges got to go. So the only thing that they will be trying to continue from here on out will be the lower charges or offenses, because police, what they do is tack on a bunch of charges and offenses in hopes that at least one of them stick, at least one of them the prosecutor can prove. And if they cannot prove, they can convince you to take a plea, a guilty plea, and then you convict yourself. I think it's interesting that you got this lady, motherfreaker Sandra Dorley, who wants to complain, talking about she spent a lot of money on this case. At the same time, she wants to blame the jury. And this lady went, I mean, look at this. I just spoke to District Attorney Sandra Dorley, who said she is extremely frustrated. Dorley tells me the jury did not follow the rules the judge gave them, and based upon that, there was an indication they'd be grossly unqualified to sit as jurors. Dorley says they will schedule a new trial date and start from scratch. Sounds just like my case. But this to me sounds like another one of Sandra Dorley's things, especially because she already complained about talking about how cases that she had, dealing with or whatnot, several of them resulted in mistrials. And then she brings up the jurors. And to me, it just seems like another one of her, you know what? Let's get rid of jurors. Let's ensure that all cases are resolved through bench trials, AKA, you don't stand before a jury of 6 or 12, you stand before a judge who 9 times out of 10 gonna convict you because his motherfreaking or her status is linked with the legislative body and the executive body. And when those jokers start hammering down, hey, we need revenue. Those judges are gonna be like, okay, convicted. How's this? That's enough revenue. We need some more. All right, next one. Convicted. Send the next one down the assembly line. Convicted. She wants to come I really believe that Sandra Dorley wants to come for jury, just like she coming for the geriatric community, where here in New York, they had recently passed legislation that states that if you have served at least a minimum of 15 years of your sentence and you are a minimum of 55 years old, it's not automatic release. It's just you are eligible now to go before, the parole board and try to negotiate to get released on parole. It doesn't solidify it. It just says you're now eligible to be heard and seen. But she goes and want to complain. Let me show you. But she goes and want to complain, she wants to go and complain and talk about how this can have adverse effects for the victims and blah. Nigga, you don't give a dang about the victims, because if you did, these criminal matters, these court proceedings, they wouldn't say the city of Rochester versus the defendant, or the Monroe County, versus the defendant, or the state of New York versus the defendant, or the United States of the United States of America versus the defendant. You don't give a dang about the victims. You don't. Because if you did, victims will be implemented a little bit more. You would actually go and see about them even after the fact. You don't give a damn about them. You just use their plights as a way to get paid. Because why? All our bodies are a source of income. But let me show you this Sandra Dorley, and then I'm going to end. All right, so I found it. Monroe County DA Sandra Dorley is calling proposed legislation a slap in the face of public safety, existing sentencing guidelines, and all victims of crime. And she's talking about the proposal for the elder parole, which, like I said, states that any person who is at least 55 years or older and served at least 15 years of their sentence can now go before, the parole board to advocate their release. She says it's a slap in the face, but people love to play the Democrat versus Republican game. Oh, Democrats are soft on crime, Democrats is dead. These niggas is one and the same. They all act the same. They just flip-flop on cases when the time, switches, because at the end of the day, it's hard for the average person to even keep up. You see, how many times have you heard Republicans motherfreaking be anti-immigration, and then all of a sudden, it is not uncommon to see several of those same anti-immigration Republicans now advocate immigration. They just flip-flop for, when the time is right, and for when they think, maybe I should, go with this idea because I can get these, voters, this voter base. To me, the criminal justice system, like every other system, it's a joke. It's bent, distorted, all types of stuff. And I believe that these politicians, they intentionally utilize ambiguous terms, right? Ambiguous terms, and speaking with an equivocal, jargon, and it's literally with the intentions to confuse, right? To distort your mind. They figure, well, if I leave it, with this vague, open, interpretation, if I don't narrow down the meaning, I can cause confusion. And that's what this is. That's why we're not told what led to the juror misconduct. We're just given crumbs. And then the average person don't know the structure and the procedure and how, the court system and the criminal justice system function, whether it's on paper or in real life. And so a lot of their ills, a lot of their motherfreaking foul behaviors even the ones that are deemed unconstitutional, they go unnoticed because why? You don't know. It's like the Bible says, God's people perish for a lack of knowledge. We're literally dying out of ignorance. I say all that to say this, man. Pay attention to your politics. I know. I could sit here with you, talk about how much I hate politics and how much I feel like it's all a gimmick and, you know, our voice doesn't really matter because when you look at it, I mean, we've seen with the Donald Trump's presidency where the general population, although millions of people voted for Hillary Clinton, you know, and she beat Trump based on the popular vote, Trump became president based on electoral college, which is made up of what? Less than 400 people. Less than 400 wealthy bureaucrats, past motherfucking politicians and such, have way more power with their voice over ours as a conglomerate. And we made up of millions. Right? So I know the plight where it's like, I don't want to get involved in politics because it's all for nothing. They don't listen to us. They don't care about us, X, Y, and Z. However, this complacency gives them room to keep doing it, right? How many times have somebody done something to you and it was so foul and you ain't say nothing, you ain't do nothing. And then they keep on happening and then you just keep getting pissed off. You're like, oh my mother freaking goodness, why does this keep happening? Why the freaking keep happening? And then you realize, like, damn, I ain't say nothing to them. I haven't told them how I feel about it. Like, it's like that saying, a closed mouth don't get fed. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Assert yourself. Whether they want to hear it or not, put it out there. Get involved, because the more you don't, a lot of legislation is going to get passed that is going to go right past our blinders. We ain't going to see squat. And then some time going to go by, and then we going to be like, damn, how the freak we get here? And then we got to look back and see, like, dang, all this legislation just passed us by. We didn't get involved. I didn't vote for this. I didn't vote for this person. But your lack of involvement is what got them here. It's either you stand for something and you try, or you do nothing and niggas just walk all over you and you just continue the cycle of crying, woe is me, pity parties and junk. Nobody feels sorry for you, okay? Get involved. Get involved. Because they doing some wild stuff, right? Because that's all it takes. You advocate the familial DNA conviction of one, baby, you do it for yourself. And not only do you allow yourself to be convicted by these, by this tactic, but now you're subjecting the innocent people in your family to involvement with the criminal justice system, to interactions with the criminal justice system that they would not normally have had in any other space. People should not have their information being funneled through the criminal justice system when they ain't got squat to do with nothing. Come on. Like, you can't just slap everything. Public safety. Everything ain't public safety. It's just code words, dog whistling with hidden motherfucking narratives and messages and tactics behind it. What we see in the forefront is not what they doing in behind the scenes. Even the legislation that they bring to the forefront, people fail to realize that this legislation, when they pass a legislation like this one where it talks about, she's like, oh, we need to get rid of the elder parole because, it's helping violent offenders just, be free and all this other stuff. And little do we know that alongside that legislation that gives people who are at least 55 years of age or older, who have served a minimum of 15 years, this legislation gets them before a parole board so they can at least say, hey, can you consider me? being released on parole. This same legislation can have other facets about it where it's stuff pertaining to pay, ensuring that more benefits are included in the jobs. Because you got to realize they don't just be passing onesie twosies. These look up the legislation. That junk is several pages, okay? A plethora of pages. It's not just one, like I said, it's not just one event that is in there. It's a lot of stuff in there. And when they try to come for one thing, baby, they coming for everything else that we don't know that's packed with it. So become acquainted with what's going on, because at the end of the day, your body is just a source of revenue. Your body is a source of income. These aggressive policing tactics are linked to our municipalities' cry for revenue. When these jokers say we need more revenue, you see it. Especially people who travel highways on a regular basis. You see the police be out here galore handing out traffic tickets. The same thing applies when it comes to arrests. When you go to these neighborhoods, see, some of y'all live in homogeneously white neighborhoods, right? And you don't see what's going on in these neighborhoods that are a little bit more diverse. But these areas that are a little bit more diverse, baby, it's hell for us. Because we're being policed by people who do not know us. They don't know the culture. They come from your neck of the woods. They come from rural America. And then they come to metropolitan areas and they want to police us. Don't know nothing about us. Ain't hanging out with nobody that look like me. Ain't got nobody breaking bread at their table with them that look like me. But they want to police me. They want to sit here and say, well, I was, utilizing my senses and I, observed this person and I seen them do this, that, and the third. And my brain did its processes and this is what it came up with. Even for me, I noticed like when I go to these convenience stores, it's a different culture. You know what I'm saying? A difference in culture dealing with these people in the convenience stores, because dealing with these people in the convenience stores, especially because majority of them are staffed by males. Most of these males, they come from Middle Eastern, countries, like they're Yemen people. They come from cultures where the men, they ain't interacting with women like that. Men talk to men. Women ain't got no place. Women are subservient. They're second class, all types of that. So when I go to these stores, sometimes some issues arrive because I'm like, hold on, I'm used to one culture. And it's conflicting with the culture that you used to. And now we got, you see what I'm saying? We got some back. And that's the same thing that applies with the police. When you got the police policing in areas that they don't know nothing about, observing, behaviors that they don't know nothing about, they process that behavior. Like, for instance, a person who seems to be like evading eye contact, they probably take that as like, oh, that person is lying to me. That person is, they're hiding something from me. And whole time in that person's culture, they probably was taught all their life not to make eye contact because it's considered disrespectful. And now you got niggas getting arrested because they look suspicious to a person who takes evasive eye contact as suspicious, malicious, when it's just a sign of respect. You see what I'm saying? So get involved, y'all. I love y'all. God bless. Please don't let these people do what they want to do with you, because the government don't know best. You are fully capable of governing yourself. You don't need these people. Please do not be falsely, believing that these individuals know you better than you. They can govern you better than you. Please do not believe that just because these jokers got status, accolades, degrees, motherfreaking achievements, certificates, you know what I'm saying? Little acronyms attached to their names. Please don't wrongfully believe that these people know better than you, because with all of their achievements and accomplishments and accolades, baby, they are motherfreaking held to the same flaws, the same issues, the same gripes that you are. When your head hurt and you don't feel like talking to nobody, you don't want to talk to, you know what I'm saying? You ain't trying to entertain no nonsense. They like that too. When you find yourself smelling yourself and you think you a little better than the next person, and you feel like you ain't got that time to put into that person because you better than them. Them niggas like that too. You see what I'm saying? You appeal to your own ideologies, which are based on the paradigms and the social constructs that are in your head that was created by someone else. They too. I know we expect impartiality and unbiases with people like Sandra Dorley, who is our district attorney, Thomas Moran, who is a presiding judge and a Supreme Court judge in New York State. Yet that dude is fully biased. And y'all be on the lookout, because I'm going to put it out there, the audio when I got arrested. When I say all types of violations, constitutional violations took place, it did. And what I thought was even crazy is when I initiated a lawsuit against them, the county's lawyer went to get the record of the arrest and contacted me and said, hey, I need you to present me your evidence because we have no evidence that you were even arrested. We have no indication that you were even here. And that's with a stenographer present, the same person that's supposed to document what takes place in the courts. These people won't even tell us what the juror misconduct was. But then when you try to go sit up in the court, you got people like Thomas Moran. He don't want people sitting up in his court that ain't got squat to do with that court case right there, that proceeding right there. He uses the sheriffs to keep people out. I try to sit in on court cases for school. He don't let it. Because of that corruption, man. They don't want to run the risk of being exposed. Because you got to remember, the relationships between these court actors ain't what you think, okay? A lot of the time, these people are even working in hostile work environments. Yes, there's ample of cases out there. We had one where a public defender, she tried to defend a defendant who didn't have a lawyer present, and she was like, hey, he needs a lawyer present. You know, she was vocalizing for him to ensure that he had, you know, his due process carried out. And she was arrested and held for contempt and beat the freak up by the motherfucking sheriffs. And all she was doing was her job, ensuring that an indigent had counsel, legal counsel. It's the same thing with these clerks, these people working in hostile work environments, man. Because the same person that dictates our freedom is the same person that dictates whether or not they keep their job, how much they get paid, etc. I say all that to say this. I'm going to end here. Don't do the government's job. Don't believe everything they tell you, because majority of the time they are liars. Okay? Over 90% of court cases resolved by plea bargain. Less than 10% actually goes to trial, and that's just me being generous. In several states around this nation, it's well over 90%. It's over 95, but I'm saying 90% to be generous, okay? In a municipality like New York, Rochester, New York, here we got about 210,000 people. It is presumed that about 1% of our population is funded through the criminal justice system, the courts. So of that 1%, right, 1% of about 210,000 people is about 2,100 people, about 2,000 people. We'll say 2,000 just for simplicity. Of that 2,000, 90% of court cases are resolved by plea bargains. That means well over 1,800 of those 2,000 court cases are resolved by someone doing the job of the government and taking a guilty plea and convicting themselves. Less than 10% of those court cases goes to trial, which means of that about 2,000 court cases, about 200 of Rochester cases goes to trial. And of those 200 cases that goes to trial, less than 2% of them are found guilty by a court of law. So with that being said, I would like to let you know that you are more than likely to not be convicted if you go to trial. Please don't believe the hype. Public defenders will sit here and try to coerce you into believing the worst. They amp you up with fear due to, you not knowing. The uncertainty. They tell you, well, if you go to trial and you're found guilty, the judge can sentence you to a harsher, sentence because you're wasting his time or her time. The fact that a person even has that ability to do that and the power to do that just because you feel your time is wasted, baby, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. You need to go by faith, because it happened to me. They told me the same thing. Do y'all know how many times guilty pleas were offered to me? Over 3 times. And to all of them, I said, hell no. No. I trust Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone. Watch him get me up out of here. And now I stand before you. Well, I sit before you with no criminal record in regards to this situation. I mean, I got arrested a couple of times. That's on there. I pled guilty to assault and motherfucking harassment at 17 years old out of ignorance, because I ain't know no better and my daddy didn't know no better and we couldn't afford an attorney and he didn't know, neither did I, at the age of 17, that we had the right to an attorney, and if we couldn't afford one could be provided to us. We didn't know. So my daddy told me to just plead guilty, thinking like, oh, you just speed the process up and everything. And I pled guilty to assault and harassment for fighting a girl who tried to bully me my senior year. I beat her up. Just a regular old fight, nothing extravagant. So aside from that, and it's a violation. If anything, with the changes that recently happened in New York, with them changing the age of a minor from when I was in school at 16, you were considered adult. If I'm not mistaken, I think the age has been increased to 17 now. So I can actually get that handled, because I was 16, 17 years old. I was a kid. But aside from that, I sit before y'all with no criminal record. I got all my firearms and my pistol permit. And I've had it for over a year now, since October of last year, to be exact, after fighting 17 months. So I say all that to say, trust God. Cursed is any man who puts his trust in man. Don't believe man. Don't listen to man. Don't trust man. The Bible says, walk by faith and not by sight. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. The Bible says that the just shall live by faith. Speak to that thing that is not as though it is. If God could put words out, speak words out, and they got no choice but to perform and never come back void, and we are created in his image, the same thing applies to us, baby. I love you. God bless and peace. If you want people to think otherwise of you more positively, then give them more positive experiences.